johndaversa podcast.
Miles Davis, we were very close friends. There's a love between us that was just epic. And of course it transcended into Herbie that took me everywhere. Tony enlightened me with music that I'm still studying. Now, 50 years later, I'm still studying music of Igor Stravinsky because Tony Williams was 20 years old and he gives me music of Igor Stravinsky. I'm saying, wow. Why would I ask for money? I never asked Miles Davis for a dime. It wasn't that important to me. But I was petrified too.
This episode features a very special human being, Dr. Marshall Hawkins. I met Marshall a number of years ago when we were both teaching at the Idyllwild Arts Academy. And he's one of those people that is so open-hearted and so warm, so giving and so nurturing that there's just an alignment at the heart level from the very moment that you're in his presence. And I couldn't hesitate to have the opportunity to sit down and talk with him when I was in Idyllwild. So you get to hear a little bit of his story growing up in D.C. and playing with Miles Davis and Lena Horne and his dedication to education and music. Here's Marshall Hawkins. Dr. Marshall Hawkins, I want you to know what a gift it is for me and everybody else that's here to be able to spend this time with you. Thank you. You have given this world so much love, so much love. And that's why I wanted to share a podcast with you so that can expand just a little bit further. I have a question for you to begin with. If you would share the answer. What's your date of birth?
My date of birth is July 14th, 1939.
Do you have an earliest memory that comes back to you?
Interesting. In 1940, I remembered a room of red lights and black shades, and I was laying on the left side of the bed. This is 1940. I told my mom, who was the one who adopted me, after I had obviously started playing the bass. I was maybe 26 or so. And I said that to her. I said, Mom, what was so and so and so? And of course I described what I just said to you about this room and so forth. And she looked at me. And the tears started rolling down her face because that's when she realized my ability in terms of memory. And I remember a lot between the age of 6 months until maybe I was 5 years old.
Do you have any memories before you were born?
I wish. I have a feeling that I do, but I don't think they've come to fruition yet. I'm in my second childhood, so I'm not sure.
So you grew up in D.C.
Yeah.
Tell us about that environment. Tell us about the music. Tell us about the culture of that period of time. Tell us about the people that you were in a house with, that you grew up with. tell us about the musicians and the art that was in D.C.? Paint the picture for us of your environment.
My environment was an environment of having been in a capsule surrounded by all whites, because Barry Farms was a community that was dedicated for servicemen to come back from the war, to have a place to live. And so for some reason that idea got abandoned and was given to us, the African American people, who were not very financially able to survive, World War II. And so we were given these places to live until we made too much money. And once we made a little more money, which was called the over income bracket, we had to move out. But during that time, I would say between 1942 and towards the end of the war, there were people that came to our community. The Italians came. My father worked for the Jews. He was a butcher. So I ate quite well. But I was very impressed with the Quakers who came. We were very blessed in our little community. We had victory gardens. I remember thinking of a garden. At 3 years old, I had a really wonderful garden, which even today, I have plants throughout my whole entire house, and I'm still growing things because I had my spinach. I grew my own garden. So we had victory gardens, and we had all of these things, and so forth and so on. But lo and behold, having been adopted, I was raised in this environment of church. So I think that was the impetus, I think, for my future success, because I had something to give me an idea that I was okay, but I realized my size in terms of the universe, in terms of everything around me. So early on in my life, I think that was a point where I was able to engage in being humble, because it wasn't about me. And those are the things that I learned from my parents. Was it's not about you, it's about what are you going to do? What are you going to give? That's kind of what I grew up with, giving. Not receiving, giving. It was always that kind of attitude with all the people. Now, having been adopted, I lived within 2 blocks of my biological mother my whole entire life until she passed away. I think that's rare, to be involved with your biological and your adopted parents your entire life. That was a blessing. Yeah. Now, back to the musicians and all of these wonderful journeys that I took. At age 5 was when I left my body. And I was playing at Duke's place. Bum, 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 bum. If you got perfect pitch in this room, that may not be the key, but anyway. I remember leaving my body because all toy pianos were in C. I remember it clear as a bell. Now, from the time I was 6 months old until to that point, I have a lot of memories. Asking my dad, knowing that it was snowing outside, and I was a little tyke. And my dad, they had some spirits and so forth during Christmas time. And I was like, hey, Dad, let's run. And I'm running a straight line, and he was going this way. I remember those things when I was like 2 or 3 years old. The thing that I remember the most about my adopted dad was when they brought me from that place when I was 6 months old. I was sitting with cousins, and I was not exactly ignored, but there were so many. There was 13 kids or so forth there. So my left leg hadn't developed. So Papa Hawkins, with his olive oil-filled hands, rubbed my left leg because it was short. So I walked late in life, but he brought my leg out. He brought it out.
Really?
Yes, he brought it out with his hands. He knew what to do. He was a boxer, so he married my adopted mom because she said, if you continue to box, I will not marry you. But the man knew anatomy. That was his love. That was his giving. And my adopted mother's mother, Estelle Jeffries, was my best friend. She's the one that actually raised me. So we keep going. So let's shift back to age 5 after bum, 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 bum. I remember playing in the alley in Berry Farms, and the kids were riding bikes. And they came down the alley, because we had alleys then, you know, and I just got in the way, and the bikes hit me and broke my ankle. I say, okay. That was, whew. I sort of survived it somehow. And the reason I survived it is that the kid that hit me was a Boy Scout. So here it is. These are years where the planes were flying over our house. So I saw the planes flying over my house. I saw soldiers going off to war from just down the street. I could throw a rock at it. And here's the Boy Scout that brought me a model airplane. That changed my life. At that point, I decided, well, maybe I'd like to be a fighter pilot. And I started building model airplanes for the next many, many years. And even soared straight on into high school with the idea of being a fighter pilot. Well, cancellation T cornpone, that didn't happen. Okay, so just to cut back to the model airplanes, the music was always there. Bum, 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 bum. So in 4th grade is when I joined the Glee Club, and that changed everything because I was able to use my voice. And I can remember asking my teacher, Mr. Hall, I want to sing alto. And he looked at me. And I'm sure he looked at me in a way that he's saying to himself, wow, this child's got some kind of musicality here because he wants to sing alto. And he replied, well, Marshall, I'm sorry, but your voice is too high. But that's when I started to really understand that there was something there, the voice. So we're moving on. Bum, 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 bum. At age 12, I'm in 6th grade, the talent show came. So I was able to join one of my friends who taught me how to play the hucklebuck. So I learned how to play the bass line. Boom, 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 beep, boom, 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 beep, boom. That was my job. And he was playing the melody up here, right? Well, we tied first place with my best friend's sister. So, wow. So here's this little beginning. We keep going and keep developing. All the time, keep developing. And then shortly after that, I think one of the most amazing things that happened was the building of the Frederick Douglass Junior High School. Now let's flip back to Frederick Douglass. Now, when I was in 4th grade, I was a Cub Scout, and I was a Cub Scout on Frederick Douglass's property. So I'm saying, okay. Oh.
You were a Cub Scout?
I was a Cub Scout on Frederick Douglass's property in Washington, D.C. So here we are, Frederick Douglass Junior High School. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. I didn't think about it. And, you know, I didn't think of the magnitude of what was happening then until many, many years later. But there it is. I'm in junior high school now. Frederick Douglass Junior High School. Wow. And of course, shortly thereafter, Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954. Well, I reckon all hell broke loose then, because things changed. And that's when I was exposed to racism in a way that I had not really known it before. I had been primed because on my way to Frederick Douglass's home as a Boy Scout, or a Cub Scout, I might add, I'm sorry, Cub Scout, I had this little kid. As I was walking to Frederick Douglass's home for my little meeting, the kid spit on me. Well, the way I was raised, and plus I had on this uniform, that was something that said to me that, oh, I just spiritually rose above it for some reason. I didn't react to this little guy who just spit on me. So, okay. Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954, Anacostia High School. That was a roughie. Thank goodness, from the time I was probably in elementary school, but mostly in junior high school, I was a track star, so I could run. So by the time I got to high school, even though those white kids are 1,600 whites, and I was maybe in an enrollment of 24 blacks, they didn't want us there. There's two ways I survived it. I could run. And I did. Because in junior high school, I ran a 9,900-yard dash. And it wasn't win-aided. 9-9. But the other thing that saved me and gave me my passport, la musica, and of course in Spanish, and musiki in Swahili, and athleticism saved me. And when I developed the ability to play the organ in high school, I became quite famous and very respected, because that's what the music was. The music was my passport. Not only that, I was in a marching band playing drums, snare drum, tenor drum, bass drum. However, Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954, my United States history teacher was my nemesis. Because I asked him, I said, these books that you have are not reflecting the African-American people. I didn't use the word African-American because I had embraced the word Negro. There aren't any Negroes in this book. Well, he failed me. He failed me. And that's one of the reasons I didn't graduate from high school at Anacostia. Because it was because I had to have United States history to graduate. And I didn't have it, so I said, okay, I'm out of here. So back to the flying. Anacostia High School had trainers, you know. And when I say trainers, these are planes where you could train to land on an aircraft carrier. See, this is another point of I was bringing all of these things with me from a little kid. I wanted to be a pilot. So Anacostia had all these facilities for me to sort of train and do all those things, right? Well, yeah, I tried to land on an aircraft carrier. I tried 100 times. I think I made it about 6 times. But I crashed a lot.
Really?
But it was so fun to be able to sit on a trainer, you know. But all of these little things, you know, the music, wanting to be military, miss being an Eagle Scout by a Nat's hair because I became a scoutmaster in my church. They needed a scoutmaster, so I was an Eagle Scout, so I became a scoutmaster, so I wasn't able to get that. But what we did was, I developed an exhibit for the National Guard Armory, and I did an assortment of knots, and they were all functional knots, not decorative. Functional knots that's for survival, and it won first place. So these are the things that it's kept me going under the auspices of the word a calling. So the calling is still going, although I'm still in my second childhood now, and I don't know how to really to really assess that, because you know, when you're a kid, you're like, and she's figured out a way to out-silly me, and I love it.
No way.
Yeah, oh, she did it. Last year she did it, and she continues to do so. But anyway, we could jump back into the music. I had a chance to hear such great music my entire life. My mother loved, my adopted mother loved Verdi and Puccini. She loved the opera. I had a chance to hear Marian Anderson live. I heard Duke Ellington live. I heard Louis Armstrong live. I saw the Nicholas Brothers live. I saw all of these amazing people that influenced my life. So when I didn't graduate from Anacostia High School, what I didn't realize, I had already graduated, because I had been involved with people who were definitely voices above the crowd. And I didn't realize it until many, many years later, until the string bass came into my life, and that's when, I have to say it just as it is, all hell broke loose. Now, I thought Brown versus the Board of Education was culture shock. It wasn't. It's when I picked up the string bass, I became a professional musician, literally overnight, because music up to that point was nothing but a hobby, because of so many other things that I enjoyed doing. And the reason... Oh yeah, played the organ in church for the Episcopal and Baptist churches for 7 years, by ear. Chopin, Bach, Handel, yeah. I couldn't read music, but I would look at the chart and I'd figure out the notes and so on, so on, so on, so on, so on, and then put the chart away and play the music. But that's not sight reading. So I wasn't a sight reader. But when I picked up the bass, that's when I became a sight reader. But here it is. All of that, you know, helped me to be who I am now in my second childhood, because I'm really still getting started. Now, I know this has been a verbal maze, but I think this is indicative of pure improvisation, because this is what I'm speaking, improvisation. I'm giving you as much information as I can about who this person is and who this person will continue to be, in hopes that I can continue to set an example. I don't know where I'm going, and I don't want anyone to take the J out of joy, principally because I have no expectations. And the reason I don't have expectations is because I want to make sure that I can eradicate the possibility of disappointment. I just take it as it comes.
And you live it. That's it. That's the four things I always talk about is if you can live with real gratitude, the kind that when you think about it right now just fills your heart and you're full gratitude. Integrity, where you know who you are without any external validation. You know it in your heart who you are. When you've been beaten up and you're on the street and it's raining, you know who you are and you can get up. Humility, where you're that little grain of sand. You've won the big award, but you celebrate it with everybody. Humility. And then that's the thing. If you can live that way with no expectation of the outcome, things fall into place, don't they? And that makes me want to ask you this, because you've come into this life with a lot of gifts and a lot of sense of mission. It's also interesting that all of those places that you've gone just in the early part of your life, all those seeds were planted when you were very young. It makes me think, what are you planting right now in your second childhood? But I'm going to ask you, what do you think, if you were going to assess this, what are your greatest gifts that you've come into this life with? And what do you think have been the greatest challenges?
I think the greatest gift, and it's because of the Episcopal Church, the Baptist Church, and being involved with the church. It comes out to L.O.V.E, love. I don't know anything any more valuable or any more meaningful in my life than love. I think if you don't have love in your heart, I think you're uncivilized. My greatest challenge is to constantly keep me out of the way of getting the real work done. I try my best not to overthink it. I don't want to take the J out of joy. I don't want to take the J out of joy. That's the greatest challenge, is keeping me out of the way. You know, sometimes you have moments in life that you're not quite sure what to do, and you feel like you're alone. And that's a real challenge. That's a real challenge, and we all have those moments. And having said that, the real challenge is to make sure that you keep this love in your heart. Just keep that love in your heart. Let nobody get in the way of you and the love in your heart. That's a challenge. Don't let anybody get in the way of the love that you have in your heart. That's a challenge. Now, if I'm going to be negative and if I'm going to be a fighter, if you get in the way of my love, I will fight you. If you get in the way of the love, I will fight you. Not physically, but I will fight you. And that's a challenge, because I don't want to fight, but don't get in the way of the love. Don't get in the way of the love. And I think, to be honest with you, had I not done all these things in my life, I love numbers so much that I'm pretty certain that I would have been a physicist. I love numbers. I love it. I know now, and I'll say this, I can actually put the bass in the corner, walk away, and never play it again. After 60 years of playing the instrument, I could put it in the corner and walk away from it. And the reason I can do that is because in my mind's eye, mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. Yeah. That doesn't mean that I'm satisfied. It just means that there's a lot of other things I could do. And it's all been subject matter. For everything that I've done to play music, prior to playing music, was subject matter. So now I can put the bass in the corner and say, thank you. Thank you, bass. Mm-hmm. Thank you for choosing me. Mm-hmm. I didn't choose the bass chose me. I'm a fisherman, age 5. But then I became a fisher of men. That's the challenge. To stay the course, and let nobody get in the way of your love. Louis Armstrong said to me, "You're very gifted, and Miles wouldn't have you in this band unless you had something to offer." But then he looked at me and he said, "What are you going to do to leave a legacy for humanity?" Well, here I am. This is what you see. What you see is what you get. This is I just closed my 38th year here at the Idyllwild Arts Academy. No one gets in the way of my love. I will fight you. I will fight you. Don't get in the way of my love. And my love is for humanity. Mm. And it comes under the auspices of selflessness. Mm-hmm. It's not about me. That's a challenge.
You said earlier that you and your family are givers. And I certainly know that of you. That made me wonder, is it difficult to receive?
Yes.
Is that something that you had to learn how to do?
I had to learn how to do it. I had to learn how to do it. You know, Christmas time, I don't give gifts. I don't think that's very important to me. And it's hard for me to even receive them. I just give myself. I give eye contact, and it's like L.O.V.E coming out of my eyes. That's what it's all about. You know, these little trinkets. No. It's hard. It's hard. I think the most difficult thing for me is to receive a compliment. And I try my best to encourage my students to open themselves to do so, because it's important to be able to receive a compliment, but it's very difficult for me. It makes me very shy and no, I didn't do anything. Oh, no, I didn't do anything. You know, that's hard. That's a challenge. Yeah, big challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is a circuit.
Yeah.
Right? There's that balance. Yeah. As much as you give, you have to also understand how to receive it.
Yes, and that's a challenge. Yeah.
You picked up that bass there. Mm. And you became a professional musician. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the path after that.
Well, as I said, music was a hobby. And The note that I played suggested sunshine. That was the D string, vitamin D. I played the D string on the bass and I said, oh. Oh. And from that point, my life changed. And I became a professional musician literally overnight because of the string bass.
Do you have visions or feelings like that with all the notes or with open strings?
Oh yeah, now, especially F sharp.
Tell me about F sharp.
Well, I have to make sure that I differentiate between F sharp and G flat. Mm-hmm. And I challenge that all the time. Okay, I'm going to play an F sharp right now. And then tomorrow I want to play in G flat. Yes. Yes. Yeah, every note on that instrument it means something. Mm. It's like we were talking about the earth, the sound of the earth, the D flat.
D flat.
Yeah, baby. That's the bass. The bass is so resonant in D flat. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, every note is so important, but it was really scary to become a musician literally overnight. I was married, I had 2 kids, and I had to make a decision. And that was one of the greatest challenges I've ever had in my entire life. And my kids and my grandchildren and so forth, they've been here all week. And they've been helping me with my instrument and helping me to do things. But this was culture shock. Because I got catapulted into a situation, and unfortunately, I didn't have the education to support my success. Brown versus the Board of Education, I didn't graduate from high school. I didn't have the education to support my success.
I see.
That was hard. That was a challenge. So, what I did was, need I say more? I zipped this and opened this. That's what we have to do as musicians anyway. We talked about this is his favorite, listening. Listening. Yeah. I practiced for 6-7 hours a day, and I said to myself, well, in 10 years, I'd like to play with Miles Davis. Mm-hmm. Well, it happened in 4.5 years. There again, culture shock. Even before that, I played with Betty Gray, and I'd been playing the bass maybe 2 or 3 months. The first tune I played as a professional musician was Whisper Not, Benny Golson. The first tune I actually learned on the bass was All the Things You Are. I still don't know it. The ubiquitousness of that piece of music is just, you can't fathom it. Yeah. It's just off the charts. But this instrument catapulted me into such culture shock that it turned around after a while. It turned around after a while. Because Shirley Horne, well, Betty Gray was the one that I played with playing, of course, Whisper Not. And Shirley Horne heard me with Betty Gray, and she said, come here. And I joined her group. And a year and a half after having played the bass, I recorded my first album with Shirley Horne called Travelin Light. And the last time I recorded anything that even came close to that first recording was a recording that I made with my dearest friend, Bob Buss. 3 trios. But I had been playing the bass a year and a half. Okay, here we are, Shirley Horne, the Giants, Kenny Burrell, Joe Newman, all these guys. They endorsed me. They gave me my passport.
Yeah.
They gave me my passport. Shirley Horne was in and out of Miles Davis's house all the time. We were in New York. We're doing stuff. And then there was a period where I was able to join Miles Davis in the very same room that I played my first gig. And that was in the Bohemian Caverns in Washington, D.C. I played my first gig and I made money. And then 4.5 years later, I played with Miles Davis. And the first tune I played everything I knew. Everything I knew. So I guess all I can think about to share with you is that you have to be careful what you wish for, because you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it, so you gotta be prepared. So that helped me as a Boy Scout, because that's one of the things. Boy Scouts have to be prepared. Yeah. But believe me, I was not prepared for this journey. And as I said before, I could set it in the corner because mission accomplished. And only because I've been able to share everything that I know with all of you guys, all of the students, all of the people, and to leave the legacy for humanity. Mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You share your love as well.
Yeah. The bass. Oh, boss, the boss.
I have an inappropriate question to ask you. When you were with Miles, how much money did you make?
I never asked him. I never asked him for a dime. I never asked that man for a dime. Principally because I was petrified. Just to be in the band. Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Tony Williams. Are you kidding me? I remembered his lawyer said, Miles ought to be ashamed of himself for giving you this amount of money. I said, really? I just walked away. It was enough for me to take care of my kids. It wasn't about the money. I've never thought about money. I have never thought about money. Even I was married twice, but I never really thought about money. Well, guess what? I'm here and I don't have to worry about money because I've never thought about it. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. It's just, what is it? I never asked Miles Davis for a dime, but I'll say this. Miles Davis, we were very close friends. There's a love between us that was just epic. And of course, it transcended into Herbie that took me everywhere. Tony enlightened me with music that I'm still studying now. 50 years later, I'm still studying music of Igor Stravinsky, because Tony Williams was 20 years old and he gives me music of Igor Stravinsky. I'm saying, wow. Wow. Why would I ask for money? I never asked Miles Davis for a dime. It wasn't that important to me. But I was petrified too. It's hard for me to ask for money now. Why? It doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't mean a thing to me.
Idyllwild.
Numerical configuration. I was 39 years old when I came to Idyllwild, California in 1978. 2 times 39 is 78. The numerical configuration is just like all over the place. From Idyllwild to Tanzania to Bremen, Germany to everywhere in the world practically. Yes. So having to move from Washington, D.C. to Idyllwild, I was able to drive across this country 9 times in 5 years. I drove from California and then go to Pacific Northwest Asia. Go back to California, go back to Washington, D.C. and go to Europe. Richie Cole, Eddie Jefferson, Manhattan Transfer, all these, And of course, for the first 5 years, nobody really knew I was here because I was traveling a lot. But thank goodness, when I was able to settle down is when I met some wonderful people. And the one person I met was Dwight Buzz Holmes, his father, Bob Holmes. And that's when I was able to start to develop classically, because I was able to play the Messiah for more than 25 years as the only bassist in the Messiah here at the Idyllwild Master Chorale. And that's when I started to develop. And of course, in 1986, developed the jazz program, 1986. And it didn't become full-fledged jazz program because at that time, I was actually coaching sports, boys basketball, girls softball, girls basketball, girls volleyball, boys baseball. I was coaching everything, just everything. You know, it's just to make a living, you know, because it wasn't about the money. It was about serving. It was about helping. I was an athlete, so I was using all of these skills to just to exist in Idyllwild. Yeah. So Idyllwild has been a haven to me for the last 45.5 years. That's over half my life in this wonderful, wonderful place.
There are going to be a lot of people that hear this and watch this. And I just want to acknowledge the gifts that you've given to hundreds of musicians and students that have gone through here and have been inspired by what you've created and provided. And on behalf of all of them, thank you. If you will, please receive that in your heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I swerve for a moment? Tell us about your ancestry. Tell us about your lineage and what you bring with you from your ancestors.
Thanks to one of our leaders, Marianne Kinstole, who was head of school for, I think, 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. Went to Tanzania 16 years ago, just on a vacation, and found her calling. Her husband still works for the Idyllwild Arts Academy, if I'm not mistaken, Don. They both created what was called Karimu. And Karimu means generous in Swahili. And in 2017, she invited me to go to Tanzania, which changed my life tremendously. Because I've always been one who, of course, I have love, but I have love for elders. And when I went to Tanzania, I saw how the people respected the elders. And I kept looking for those examples wherever I went in my own homeland, which didn't exist in the way that I thought it should be. And I came home very angry to the point where I said, well, I have to do something. That was 2017. 2018, I went back to Tanzania again. But before, let me cut back to 2017. The way I got to Tanzania in 2017 is that I helped to raise a little over $2,000 to build a maternity ward in Bacho, Tanzania, which is now a full-fledged hospital with surgeons. But I went back again in 2018 as a volunteer to help build classrooms and so forth and so on. The bass is in the corner. You see, that was the clue right there that I could put the bass in the corner and walk away, because I put the bass in the corner for like 3 weeks for the first time in my entire life when I went to Tanzania. 2018, celebrated my 80th birthday. But that's the year the elders found me and found who I was, because I'd done all these testings, in terms of, you do all this cultural testing and so forth, and it failed. It failed. It just kept failing and failing and failing and failing. Well, the elders found that I was, and they told me when I was in Tanzania, the elders came to me and told me that I was Maasai. I was from the Maasai tribe. And they looked at me and they said, "We know who you are." And it changed me. It changed me to the point where wow, really? That's who I am, Maasai. Okay. I went back again in 2019. And from that point, my life sort of passed in front of me. Everything, all of the things that really were just awful, all this great joy came to me, like, wow, the knowledge of who you are is pretty amazing. So I challenge all of you guys to know who you are. That was a real blessing, to go halfway around the world and find out who I am. Yeah. 23andMe, National Geographic, they could not find any. They couldn't find it. They couldn't find it. Because the Maasai are nomads. Yeah. You know what a nomad is? They're everywhere. Yeah. It changed my life. If I can use some terms that you might understand, it's got a lot to do with math, especially when it comes to. Up until that time, as fortunate as I had been, growing up with my biological and my adopted parents, even that was a form of inertia. It was a form of inertia. I mean, it's like the music, to some degree, was impetus. And then it kept me alive, kept me treading water until I got to Tanzania. And from my time in Tanzania, from inertia to impetus, now I'm in a state of momentum. I'm going faster than I ever thought I could travel. The love force in my heart, right, is traveling faster than I could ever think. It's just like, silly. There's my silly buddy. Yeah. So that's what I practice now, being silly. And finding all the silly ways that I can exude love. Yeah. That was Tanzania. Roberta Flack helped me. She primed me by taking me to West Africa when I went to Ghana to celebrate the celebration of Ghana's independence from the UK, from Great Britain. I was there. But that was different. I was a performer. Tanzania, I was a volunteer. Until I found out who I was, and I realized that I was at home. I wasn't a volunteer anymore. I was at home. I'm going back one more time. Una más. Una más. Yeah.
There are a lot of silly people out here. You see them all? There's some behind you, there's some in front of you, and there are a bunch outside that you can't even see.
Mhm.
And I wonder, in parting, they probably don't feel silly all the time. Sometimes it feels like there's a lot they got to navigate through. Sometimes silly, but there's a lot of unknowns out there. And perhaps as a master educator, you might have some words for them in general to navigate through these next steps as they go through their lives and their careers and their families and their life experience.
Listen. Please listen. Silence is golden. You musicians have to understand the silence between each note has so much value. Silence is golden. It's like a visual artist has this white canvas. That's silence. Pay attention to your subject matter. What is your subject matter? Your subject matter is your life. Some of you have not even fallen in love yet. Some of you have not really been hurt deeply yet, which is all part of subject matter. These are the things that you're going to play music about. These are the things that's going to touch your lives to the point where you will express these things and won't even know that you're doing it. And it doesn't matter. What is subject matter? For a visual artist, it could be the tree. What is it for a musician? I think about my grandmother. I think about that first note that I'm going to play. I'll think about that note with such reverence that I may never get a chance to play that note again. And it's got to be listen. Duke Ellington said it. He listened. He listened to his compositions. He listened to his playing, and he just listened. So, silence is golden. Is that good? Yeah.
Dr. Marshall Hawkins, everybody.
I would like to say one more thing, and I made a statement earlier about a voice above the crowd. This is a pure example of a voice above the crowd, and he does it in a silent way. Need I say more?
That first note, can we play one together?
Marshall Hawkins, everybody. Thank you.
Much gratitude, everyone, for checking out the podcast. Please just subscribe and follow and like and add a comment, as it really helps us expand and grow and keep us all connected together. So I appreciate it very much, and I send you much, much, much love. I'll see you on the next one.